is valuable to our lives here. We want to please you in all that we do and honor you in our work. We ask all this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Kim, if you'd lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for January the 13th, 2022. The first item on our agenda this evening is the roll call. All members of council are present this evening. Having a quorum, we will proceed. We will now move into our public forum. We have two people that have signed up to speak this evening, so we'll start this evening with Jerry Thorne.
Jerry Thorne, live in 45th Place. I'm here tonight with some of the people in the 45th Place development. Back in 1997, when our development was built, we had some things that were done that probably shouldn't have been done at that time, such as our cul-de-sac is a T instead of a circle. We had bricks about every 15 to 20 feet across the width of the road, and that prevented snow plows from coming down our street. So we had to get those taken out several years ago so the city would plow our streets. But the biggest thing that happened and the biggest problem is that instead of water pipe, regulation water pipe being put in at that time, we had sewer pipe put in, which is found out is rated for 10 pounds per square inch. And water pressure in Vienna is 100 pounds per square inch. So starting somewhere around 2010, we started having water breaks. And we estimate probably since 2010, we've had between 20 and 30 water breaks, most of them happening not during 8-5 times. So we've had the city crews that have come out very promptly to do their job. But what they're doing is when they come, they dig, make a hole, and they pull out the piece of bad pipe, put in a piece of good pipe that size, and connect it to bad pipe on each end. And this has been going on for the last probably 15 years. And so we're fixing it a piece at a time. And for me and my neighbors, what happens, we've either had our yards and or driveways or both dug up, and what happens is, when you dig something up and replace it about after the first heavy rain, your lawn sinks a foot or two. And we've been left at our expense for efforts to refix it or pay a landscaper to come and fix what's been done. So we were wanting to try, it seems not the right way to do things to fix this splice in bad pipe or good pipe to bad pipe a piece at a time for the last umpteen years, plus the anxiety of going away and never knowing when you're going to get the call that, oh, there's a water coming up out of your yard and the city of Vienna is here digging up your front yard or digging up your driveway. So we know that in the general funds, or generally from the funds we get from water fees, we don't have the money to fix these. We do have the ARP money, or American Rescue Plan money, that is available. Parkersburg City Council recently allocated $7 million from their ARP funds for water system improvements, including the replacement of more than 56,000 feet of water mains. So that is what we're asking. I know City of Vienna does not have the amount of ARP money that Parkersburg does, but we do have money there to take care of our problem. And we're asking tonight, I guess there's a 3-step process to get things going. First thing that has to be done, council has to approve the task order to get the cost estimate for the engineering design. We're asking for council to approve that so we can get the ball rolling and so we can right the wrong that was done 25 years ago with the city's knowledge. that this was being done, and we're going to keep throwing good money after bad, trying to splice up the mess that we have down there now. We're just asking that we get the problem taken care of and quit spending taxpayers' money on fixing this problem one piece at a time. Thank you.
Next will be Brenda Powell.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Powell, and I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna. I needed to just talk about a couple things. First one is the 45th place that was just discussed. I think that where we're at with the different things that are happening in Vienna, that are issues that are from developers or whatever the case may be, I think it's best that maybe council might think about checking into the county commission helping out in some way to be able to bring forth protection for the people of Vienna to where that they can actually do something as far as putting in some kind of resolution or whatever to help us to where that we can maybe avoid this, because council, people are not going to be the same or in the Public Works Department, so we might run across this again some other time down the road, but we need to have some sort of protection. The other thing that I wanted to touch bases on was actually for the resolution in regards to appointing a new council member. The thing I wanted to say is that actually the resolution says that there's not going to be live streaming. I don't understand why that it can't be recorded and then the interviews to where that the public is able to be able to watch it online afterwards, after it's transpired, so that they can see the interviews. I understand that the reason why that you don't want to do that is to make it fair for everybody, not want to do the live streaming. But I do feel that that this council needs to consider that as far as recording the interviews and then playing them later so that the public can be able to see the questions and answers and be involved in some part of this process. Where the life's changing, things are changing, and the internet is going to have to be probably something that we're going to have to rely more on anyway for meetings and whatnot, but that's another discussion for another day, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
The minutes from the council meeting held on December 16th, 2021 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Reconciliation of funds for City of Vienna for January 10th, 2022 have been provided, reviewed, and the accounts bear in order, and the city is financially sound.
All right. Thank you. So we now move to new business. We have no unfinished business this evening. First item on our agenda this evening is a presentation of the master plan for parks. I'm not sure how long ago it was that we authorized this, but it's been a while. And so with us this evening is civil and engineering consultants, Mr. Jim Christie. The floor is yours, sir. Do we have all your techno stuff hooked up for you?
I think so.
All right, good.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Jim Christie. I'm with Civil and Environmental Consultants. This is my assistant, Andrew Gosnell, two of our team members on this project. As you mentioned, it has been a while. We've had a great process. So what I'm going to talk about today, I won't go through this word by word. I'll take you through the process that we went through. And then I'm going to go to the parks and actually talk about each of those concepts, and that is really driven by the public. And so this has been a process. I think we started sometime in the summer, and we'll start to go through this. We do have a link. This won't be finalized this evening. We'll give you that at another date. We can give the council this, but for the public, I have an additional meeting that I'd like to have with the council and the board of directors. We'll talk about that at the end. How much time do I have? So I know
Whatever it takes.
Okay. So what you'll see, and this will be something you'll be able to put up on the city website. This is a little flip book of the project. You'll be able to print this out. We printed out a couple just so you can see what it looks like in print form. We do like the digital format, and you'll see how that flips through. And what we have in here is basically follows our process. So introduction of why we're doing it and how we're doing it, the inventory and analysis phase, the community engagement phase, recommendations, and future considerations. So as we start through this, you start to see, we want this to be seen from other communities as well. So we have a little bit of introduction and where we are located, new people coming in, things of that nature. And we start to do socioeconomics of this area. So by not being a resident here, I look at it completely different than all of you that are residents. I look at it at probably a different set of eyes. So we made multiple trips here. We've had a lot of interaction with the public. And really, you know, we look at it with this new vision, but we're listening to everything that we're taking. So that inventory and analysis, understanding the community. This community is a Heartland communities, and I'll let you read that and how that fits within your community. I think it does very well. And then we start to do our project. This is our project process and our project goals. Again, it's really how we're following this booklet. So inventory analysis, what we looked at is a number of places. McDonough Wildlife Refuge, Jackson Memorial Park, Spencer Park, Spencer's Landing, and we also looked at the 12th Street property. We didn't just look at those properties, but those are the ones we concentrated on because we thought, you know, if we start to look at your existing projects and parks, and then some area that we might need to do some additional park settings. So as we go through this, for us to understand how you got to this point, we start to look at the historical settings. You'll see the pictures of the pool, the original advertisement to help bond that pool. We also took Spencer's Landing was one of the big pieces of property. So when you look at it here, we wanted to see in context what was there. You know, I've heard a lot of different things about that property, so we wanted to see what it was about. You know, why was it a brownfield? Why was it cleaned up? Where it stands today, so we better understand how that is part of this community. And I know that if you think about this, I mean, we're talking about brownfields and other properties. We're talking about a park project. It's really what needs to be understood that we go through this process to get you a master plan that you can really follow that really fits within the community. And then we do our inventory analysis phase for each part of the project. So we go through and figure out what you have there, and there's a little bit of a description for each piece of it. And this is how we start to look at it as a group. You know, when we bring our office together and start to talk about it, we need to better understand every piece of this project. So you have pages for each park. Jackson Memorial Park's pretty big, has a lot of inventory. So that takes up multiple pages. You can kind of see each of these. And then as we did our analysis and inventory of just Vienna, we go beyond that. Okay, because it's really important for us to know regionally what do you have. So you can see here we did Vienna, we did Parkersburg, Williamstown, and Marietta. Want to see in a regional context, how many tennis courts do you have versus anywhere around you? Who has rec centers? How many ball fields are there? Whether that's multi-purpose soccer football fields versus baseball fields. We want to understand each of that to make sure that you're not overbuilding for the region. Other than that, what are their attractions? So we want to make sure that we're thinking in context of the whole area. And we also show pictures of some of those facilities. So as we get together and as the public starts to see this product and as the council starts looking through it, you'll start to see, and many of you are going to know some of these projects in the parks, and that's a good thing. That's all coming to where we're directing the master plan. Again, more regional assets. The Ohio River Water Trail, I actually didn't hear that mentioned at all. And, you know, just a little bit of digging in that regional context, we start to figure that out and see that. So we now know that there's a wildlife refuge in the river, something we don't touch at this point. And then we have community engagement. I like to applaud the public, especially on the community engagement. This community has had more engagement than any one I've done in the last 10 years. That to me was really impressive, especially in a time when we have the COVID thing going on and everybody is kind of staying at home. We had incredible engagement, very impressive, and it really helped drive this master plan. So when we get to this point, you start to see the different engagement processes that we have, everything from in-person to interviews, to your online surveys, and we've listed all that information here. You'll start to look at an area like this cloud summary. When you look at the cloud summary, the larger the word, the more that people commented on and said as a need. The smaller they were, there's a smaller amount of people did it. So we take all this information in context, and that's how we start to build upon what the park system needs are and what the community wants are. So then we start through our recommendations. And we go park by park. So we have an overall map, and we're going to highlight, as you read this book, you're going to highlight the park. And they're all in little chapters. They're color-coded so you can keep following through our chapters. And what I'd like to do is we've started to divide up Jackson Park because you kind of have the sports complex and really the playground community center complex. So we start to show what those are. And if you read, we have them labeled as existing areas and proposed areas overlapping. So if somebody just gets a hold of this one, they start to get a feel of what we're talking about and what we're looking for. And then as we move through, now we're going to start to look at what we have observed and our suggestions. I'll start to go through each of these if it's okay with everybody. So your community center and your tennis court area, Jackson Middle School, to kind of get you in context. And Andrew will also point over there. For those that you can't see this TV, please look over there. What we're showing is some of these areas, we start to look at this park and it's very well used. I went there, I don't know, half a dozen times, different times of the day, different days of the week. And what we saw is it's a beautiful park. It's got a lot of different opportunities. The connectivity is poorly done. And it's and I think that was the biggest thing we saw in this park is starting to organize the parking. So instead of having just gravel parking, having paved parking with striping. Now you'll get more cars that you can get more people in there and control that environment. I always take everything back to safety in a park. The more we can control that traffic and put them in the right context, the safer we are for children because we know that they're a little bit scatterbrained and running everywhere having fun. So we start over here by the pavilion and between there and the basketball court and start to look at the repaving here and striping and then striping within the basketball court area and parking. Those are two very important areas. We can start to really control how that works. And then the basketball court itself needed resurfacing. It's very uneven. It has cracks and settling. I think that was already on the list. I think after I looked forward later, it was already on the list. We want that in there. The next thing are the bridges. Those bridges are non-compliant. They're not ADA compliant at all. We've showed just a couple examples of what could be. I think that's a very important piece for the parking, for the basketball court, and also for a full loop. This sidewalk that goes past the parking into the basketball court is very narrow. It's very uneven. It has settled over time, and you have mud spots, cracks, a little bit of everything. That's an important piece to repair. And we see that as a nice little walking area within the park. If I'm in a walker, wheelchair, cane, anything, stroller, I can't maneuver the bridges or the sidewalks. And then there's pieces of missing sidewalk. So we want to address that. We also have areas by the northern bridge and the maintenance area. Again, striping in the parking lot. Fairly simple, easy on the economics to get that done, right? But we have some areas with the pavilions and then the new adult workout area that are not connected. Again, it's a fairly simple thing. We start to connect with sidewalks. We're saying concrete sidewalks to keep with the theme of what the park is. Start to connect all these new pieces and new playground structures. And then as we move through the park to the south bridge, again, another one that needs to be thought about for replacement to get it to a compliant structure. We have another set of sidewalk improvements that connect to the older playground equipment, the concession stand, the restrooms, and then back to the community center parking. The idea is that you get everybody out there on a pavement area that can be something they can walk around in, get some exercise, strollers, walkers, all of that. We start to really give them a place they can go and feel like they can maneuver through the whole park. We also have, in this kind of yellowish color here, is an asphalt path. That asphalt path along Pond Run would then have a crosswalk and connect to the existing asphalt path on the other side, south of Pond Run, that goes all the way to 10th Street, or close by 10th Street. So we start to connect that. What we're thinking about now is how do you get the community to the park? And I'll actually come back to this same point later in the presentation. We really want to have this as the heart of the community because it seems like it is. You have the school, you have this great playground structure, and then you have the additional part of the park. That connectivity is really important. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So as you see, this is really about getting people maneuverability. You have a great park. You have great opportunities, the dog parks, the playgrounds. I went on your zip line. I didn't get Andrew on it. He wouldn't go on it, but I did the zip line. It was great. And then we start to talk about the pool. The pool came up everywhere we went, everybody we talked to. It was built in 61. Is that correct? 61. And really kind of stayed fairly similar to what it was in 1961. So what we've done here is we start to talk about recommendations and concepts. This is really coming back to the council, and we have a third as well. But what we want to look at is, what do we do with these concepts? If we're going to put money into a pool, how does that money best spent? So me as a designer, I always look at opportunities for additional funds coming back, return on investment, but I'm also looking at how does that work for the next 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. So what we have is two different opportunities, and we have a lot of character pictures here for you to look at. But what we're looking at is your main bathhouse. It's in really good shape. The inside's done really well. I'm not sure when it was updated, but I think they did a pretty fabulous job. Your pump house is not in good shape. The concrete patio around the apron, around the pool, not in good shape. The kiddie pool, it needs to go. So those are the kind of things we start to think about. So is it reorganization or remodeling? So in the first one, what we start to look at is really building a small retaining wall on the east side up near the entrance. That would give us opportunity for additional lounge space, maybe a splash pad, different lounge chairs, an area we could start to put some shade. The fair complected guy with the bald head, he needs some shade. And then we're looking at cabanas over here at the end of the pool. By doing cabanas, now we start to get a little bit of revenue to come back. And it gives families, like, me, that's the guy you're looking for. I have four of us are coming everywhere we go. We're looking for something like that, and I'm going to pay a fee to rent that for the day. I need a home base while my kids are at the pool. And then the deep end of the pool. That's where we start to think differently. When we start to look at diving boards, it's a very small percentage of people using diving boards. I like to design to the 98%, not the 2%. So as I see an area like that, I want to upgrade that. I want more people using it. So we're starting to show a couple of slides and then an aquatic climbing wall. And if you haven't done that, they're actually over the water. You climb up, you fall into the water and do it again. Those are also opportunities to change over time. Because what we have is we don't know what the new thing is in 15 years. So we need to be flexible. So we think about that. And then we also show a different kind of shade structure. Over by your concession stand, we're starting to think about colors and themes and really, putting some splash into that. So when I drive by, my eyes are drawn to it. The kids want to see it, they want to go, and they want to bring their families there. So that's one way to do it, and it's not. It does cost some things because we are expanding, but we're keeping the pool the same, right? So we know that the pool's in pretty good shape. So if we want to go a little bit different, we want a different feel, brand new facility. We have a second version, keeping the same bathhouse. But as we move it, we have again that wall because we want to expand that space a little bit. In this area, we reorganize. We do a rectangular pool, so you still get some lap swimming, but at the same time, that rectangular pool allows for floating soft launch elements. If you've ever been on those, I race my kids on them all the time. The lily pad that's attached moves, and you have a rope over top to help you get across. Those are interchangeable, so you can make those different. Then we have a play pool. So that's an infinity edge. That's for the little ones. That's the baby pool, but it's multifunctional. So we start to get kind of that baby pool feel, but we also have a slide, and maybe it's the climbing wall as well. So you really have this functional play pool and kiddie pool together. A larger pool that has multifunction. So the people that want to do lap swimming, or if you have water aerobics, things of that nature, and we're taking care of that. And then on this version, we have a small splash pad that's a little bit smaller because we felt those other elements would attract more people. Again, we moved the building, the pump building. It's moved out of that existing footprint, so it gives you more deck space. And then we have the cabanas as well. I think the cabanas are an important thing to start to update. People are used to that. Whenever you go to a larger pool setting or on vacation, there's always cabanas. It's a good way to get some revenue. A lot of times I ask for local companies to sponsor those. And that's a great way to put their name up there and get some funding to pay for those. So those are two options. As a group and as designers, we also heard about the community center. We heard about indoor rec center. We heard about all these different items. So we started thinking about that. How do you phase these things in over time? How do you do it without having to shut down your pool for the year? So then we looked at a whole different site. And this site is down below the pool. This parking lot that we're showing here is actually the community center. And we took out this space that is it was a previous minor league field, I think. And this is Pond Run. And that's your trail along Pond Run that goes towards 10th Street. So we utilized this flat space. We stayed out of the floodplain. And what we did is we reorganized all the thoughts and the things that we do with current pool design. So we have our bathhouse again. So that's concessions. It's the offices for the lifeguards. It's your ticket booth. And so forth. Restrooms. We do restrooms differently now. We don't have this bathhouse with a bunch of lockers on the inside and showers. We actually put the showers on the outside. and lockers on the outside. The point of that being is safety and having people able to see it. So you're just rinsing off. You're not actually showering. And if that's something you like the idea of and want to see more of, we have plenty of examples of it. This one, what we have is a rounded infinity edge pool. So a big area. You can add splash elements to it, or you can keep it open. So now you have a kiddie pool. You have one that's comfortable for parents. And it moves into the next pool, which has a few lanes. This is not a competition pool. It's about community, less competition. And we have this area for laps. And then we go into this number 9 you see here. That's floating soft play elements. It's an adventure area so that we can interchange those and make them active. So one year it might be the lily pads. The next year it might be dinosaurs or something. We want to think about making that active and changing as the generations come through. At the far end, we're showing a water tower. This is all part of the budgetary things that we thought about and talked about. It falls in line with that. It looks like it's expensive, but it's not far from where you were with your budgets. We have a rental pavilion, so if you have pool parties, a lot of the kids are going to be near that slide. We want the parents to be close to that. So we have a rentable thing for parties and such. We left a splash pad area over here to the southeast. And we start to have nice lounge space. Each of these areas, there's a lounge space. So 7-foot lounge space, another 7-foot walking aisle. And repeat it so that we designate where those chairs go and we can kind of control that environment. That keeps people from running into the pool. It controls, again, it's about safety. So each thing we design here is all part of the process. And then we have our cabanas down the side. To do this, we're able to keep the existing pool open for another year while we're building one. And as we do that, I always think about every park project as phased, because sometimes it might just be a piece of sidewalk. Sometimes it might be a pool. So as we would do this, eventually we would want to fix the community center as a full-time parking lot if we want to do a new community center. And we'll move to the next one. So we've got a lot of people that were talking about some kind of indoor recreation. If it's a flex court, like a basketball court that's flexible, so we could have cheerleading and we can have volleyball, we can have pickleball. I like that you have the pickleball out there, we can do that inside. We're showing the existing pool site. And this is actually 3 basketball courts plus your community center. I wanted you to get a vision how big that site really is. It doesn't seem that big, but once we start putting dimensions to it, it really is. The beauty of that is, as you build the other pool, you can slowly tear down the other pool and open it. You tear down the old pool. And now you have the space to build a community center, or maybe it's just an indoor basketball court that is flexible. So our thought process is this could also be phased in. It could be just the community center. Then you could add on 1, 2, 3 different basketball courts if that's the feel that you want. Okay, so we talk about and think about always to be financially responsible and do it in a way that it fits the budgets. So that's the way we look at 2 different sites and slowly phase that in over time and as needed. And I think it gives you a lot of opportunity. We're even showing enough room on this site for playgrounds so that if we have community meetings going on, or if we have basketball or volleyball events, that other kids that might be with their family have something they can go outside and do if they're there all day. Let's say it's a basketball tourism, sports tourism. We want to have other opportunities. They don't always, parents aren't going to let little ones go down to the playground. We need something close by. So those are the thought processes we're looking at. I would see this as a metal building structure. Almost every rec center nowadays goes towards that. It's economical. You can dress it up on the outside. On the inside, you start to see rafters and things that are fine for a gymnasium setting. Actually, this picture here is 1 basketball court with 3 pickleball courts. So that shows you the flexibility. If you just had 1, you can do an awful lot with it. And now we move to the other side of the park, going east over the hill, and we start to look at the sports complex. Now, the sports complex, this is really driven by numbers for us. So we look at the youth sports, how many numbers you have, and what the acceleration or decline is in your sports numbers. So what's told from us when we start looking at numbers is soccer is huge and it's growing pretty consistently. Baseball and softball are on a decline. This is a national trend. It's nothing different than what we see everywhere else. So we look at this and say, well, how do we approach this park and go with the numbers? We need to make this right by the numbers. And the numbers say soccer. We say multi-purpose field. We want to make it field hockey, soccer, football, lacrosse, all of these things. So we're showing that you have the room. This area here, that's 2 fields you have, 2 softball/baseball fields here. What we're proposing in this is that you take those 2 out and you make that 1 soccer field. And it's a multi-purpose field. You already have the lights, you already have the restrooms, you already have the concessions. So what you're doing is you're reorganizing it in a way that it meets the numbers and the demand you have within youth sports. You still have 2 full-size ball fields. So your softball and your baseball still are good. And then you have the smaller fields for the Little League, minor league. This upper field was another demand that you don't have, and it just regionally you don't have much of it, is a turf field. We know that this floods every now and then, once or twice a year. So we're looking at a field, and we're in a climate that it rains a lot, right? So we want to provide an opportunity for the youth to be able to play if it's raining, or if it just rained. We don't need a mud track field. We need something that they can play on all the time. They could have an event every day on this and not worry about the wear and tear like you would a grass field. So what we're showing is a multi-purpose field that's striped differently. So in this corner, a lot of colleges, small colleges especially, are moving to this format that you have baseball, softball, and soccer all on the same turf field. So that makes this very functional space. That fits on your current footprint again. So that's what we're trying to do, is like really take these parks and turn them into something that, that as things evolve, that's what you're thinking about. On this, we start to look at McDonough. I'll come back to this section over here. McDonough Wildlife Refuge. I went up and crossed it many times myself on foot. Because I want to park as I'm bringing my family to a sporting event and I have downtime between games. I'd literally like to go see what this wildlife refuge is all about. I've walked up there. It's not comfortable crossing that road. It just really isn't. It's not safe, not comfortable. I would never let my kids do it. So we looked at that and we said, okay, you really need an underpass. You have a culvert. You have a culvert that actually, I think, caused a little bit of problems at one point before you put the parking, put the water underground. And we show these examples of how you do this underpass, how you make it safe, how you can get people back and forth safely. We also show one that has an existing culvert and stream running through it. So all of that can be taken care of, and now you've linked probably the 2 biggest pieces of property you have together in a safe way for pedestrians. Now, I'm going to go over to the Sledding Hill area. I love it that you guys have a Sledding Hill. I don't know any other community in West Virginia that has one, only the state parks. So this is really something special. I really like that idea, but I want it to be more functional. I think that as a regional attractor, you should be able to get college students and Marietta students and Parkersburg. I want everybody to come to Vienna. So what we're looking at is called a snowflake system. A snowflake system is artificial turf, and it does have an irrigation system that wets it down in the summer. But this artificial turf what that does is allows you to make this sledding hill all year round. It also, and I know this is a little bit different, you can charge a fee. You can even set it up for a residence. Maybe it's a nominal fee or no fee. And for people outside of the community, there's a fee. This is typically a 2-year return on investment. It's a tubing hill. We're showing it with a magic carpet. So the magic carpet takes you up to the top, you tube back down. This is something that isn't in West Virginia, but it's in surrounding states. This region has none. So it's a neat opportunity. That return on investment then after 2 years, now you start to have some revenue. And I see that revenue as money that can be put back into the park system. So these other things that I just mentioned of new facilities, I start to look, how do you pay for those facilities? So this is one of those ideas that as we start to get something together that can then have a return on investment and start to put some other money back into other systems. And then we also start to show what happens. And if you think about places you go and places you visit with a sledding hill, what do they have at the bottom? They have a concession stand, restrooms, maybe a fire pit for families and people to congregate. But you also are going to have people not do this. So we have some additional rental pavilions, things where people can have parties and things of that nature, so they can come here and stay for a while and do these things. All of that starts to be a bigger attraction for the whole thing. I want teams coming here and then going after their games, going over to Sledding Hill and paying a few dollars and bringing that return back to you guys and having something else to do. I also think that this is a way that you're going to attract people to town. So as we go through this process, then we start to go across the street to the McDonough. McDonough is beautiful. What we heard from the public is they really love it, but they want some other opportunities. So in here, what we've done is we started to look at how can we incorporate the mountain biking that has been asked. There's not a lot of places for mountain biking in this area. So what we've done is we've taken the one valley and we've created a mountain biking area. You remember how much it is? 3 miles?
3.5.
3.5 mile mountain biking. And what that is for small children, beginners to adults, and advanced. NICA, the NICA in West Virginia, which is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, mountain biking for high schoolers, is growing in popularity. It's getting bigger and bigger. That's an opportunity you can do that. If we build the mountain biking course, and let's say in 10 years, mountain biking declines, now those become additional hiking trails. Within this, there is a trail that goes through that area. We actually show a new trail for hikers that goes to an area that is not accessed now. So a new area within the wildlife refuge for hikers. And then at the high point, we have an observation tower. So that can be for stargazing at night. It looks over the valley to the north where the large farm is and the fields. It's a beautiful area. It's a whole different perspective than what people are used to, because otherwise we're walking through the trails and the trees are 50 feet above our head. So now we're getting above those trees, looking out over the whole valley. So we didn't have anything else for there because we really liked the setup. We liked the way the pavilions are, the parking was. It was really nice when you walk through the trails. It's beautiful, and you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're really close to town. We also like this ridge line and that separation for mountain bikers. And now I can even park across the street, ride my bike, or walk under the tunnel and do the trails and come back. We do show an additional, by that little fishing pond, we show some, that's another gravel lot of taking that opportunity and striping it and controlling how many cars go in that area. Spencer Park. So Spencer Park right across the street here. I love this park. This is a great community park. We really thought it functioned well. Seems to be a really hot spot in the community. And what we looked at was, again, surfaces. And, there's a lot of bark mulch under the playgrounds, and you have the basketball court, but it's separated by the playground, the mulch, to the parking area, the shade structure. So what we were proposing within that is to connect that parking lot to where the basketball court is with a pour and play playground surface. So everything's level, it becomes ADA accessible, and it gives us an opportunity, even with the existing play structures, to start to put some all-inclusive play. So if you have somebody in a wheelchair, they can go through the whole thing. If I have an able-bodied son and a daughter that has a disability, they have swing sets for both. It's all-inclusive. Those are the way we want to start thinking about things. We also started to look at, we have basketball courts at Jackson Park. So how can we do something a little bit different and just completely fun? We call it a system called bank shot. Bank shot has all these weird angles and different things on hoops. Very low hoops, the really high ones. The backboards are bent and fun and they're colorful. So it's really attractive to the children. And it gives people that aren't typically basketball players a reason to go play. So we start to show a little bit of different pieces, music elements, the swings, the pour and play surface, but it's all right where you're existing from your shade structure to your basketball court. So we keep the park really intact the way it is. So it's very functional with your amphitheater and your area for your festivals. That stays the same, but we really just improve that playground area and that basketball court area. Now we go to Spencer's Landing. So Spencer's Landing, I think, has some incredible opportunity. We really looked at this hard. We looked at concepts. We followed what the wishes were from the community and the comments we received from them. We started to go through what are the missing pieces that we don't have in Jackson Park, and started to put that here. And there's maybe some different things that people hadn't thought about. What I'd like to start with is, I started this whole thing off as safety. I like it to solve vehicular pedestrian safety issues. Your current parking lot's kind of in the middle. And I know that was a pad that was there and all of that, but we start to look at how do we reorganize some things to make this a safer environment. So as you pull in off of River Road, we have all the parking to the left, and you go through and we have a boat ramp area. The boat ramp would be soft launch kayak ramp, but I think also a large size boat ramp, which you don't have, to access the river with a motorboat. We have enough parking. This is something the DNR could get behind and help support. And then to the north of that, we have this divider. We have a drop-off loop. And we have this community area. That's where your existing parking is right now. In that area, we have restroom facilities. We have concessions. We have an area for outdoor eating and gathering, a splash pad, and a playground. And it's kind of really all in that corridor, so that we are really keeping people separated from the traffic. This drop-off area, then during a festival or an event, becomes something that could be food truck oriented, it could be booth set up, so we do multiple functions. And then about right here is where your Gold Star Memorial is. Our suggestion is that needs to be more prominent. If we keep it where it is and we do these other things, it becomes a little bit hidden. And I don't think that's the intent. I think it needs to be forward. What we like here is at the drop-off, we have this view straight to the river, and you have this aisle that is planted with native plant material that really enhances and showcases the Gold Star Memorial. So when I'm walking towards the river, I'm walking right at the memorial, and it has that circle in a more prominent space closer to the river. I think it deserves that. So now we're showing 3 more fields. The reason for 3 more fields, these are U12 fields. That's your biggest demographic of the youth soccer. So what we're doing is starting to look at this as a great opportunity for additional soccer fields. If you look at it this way, these two together is 1 soccer field, full size. So you really have 1.5 full-size fields, or 3 U12s. I like the 3 U12s because your younger youth groups then can congregate to one area for this project or for their sport. we show a trail going around the whole property. So now we have this paved pathway that gets people out. They can walk through there. We have an interior loop. And we have different pavilions at each soccer field. So parents can come there, they can sit, they can be in the shade or out of the weather and watch their children play. They have their walkway, but we have this large green space. So multifunctional green space could be done for festivals, fireworks, whatever you want it to be. We're showing an amphitheater up here at 15. The reason it's up there on this upper left corner is that you don't have the sun in your eyes when you're watching an event. You're watching somebody play music or a play or a recital or a bass tournament trophy ceremony. The audience doesn't have the sun in their eyes. That's the purpose it's there. And in the background is the river. Then you have all this green space that's functional to be able to bring chairs and gather people. We utilize the top portion as a trail through the woods, and that would be your ADA access to a fishing platform. The other places, you really have to use steps, so you can't do that. But we wanted to have that opportunity for somebody that wasn't able to go down the steps safely. In the middle, we have a courtesy dock. That courtesy dock is intended to allow people to come visit the park from other places. It's also to allow for people to come for events such as concerts and things and be able to leave from that, create this different experience that you don't currently have. At the end of the Gold Star Memorial, we have another fishing pier and then your courtesy docks at the boat ramp. So it's a lot of different things. All of these elements were asked for. We didn't just make things up. This is part of the process of the public input sessions, the board of directors for the parks, and the council. And there's some different pictures here. This happens to be Fairmont, West Virginia, Palatine Park Stage, same kind of approach that they had. And now we have some future considerations. One of the big things I mentioned earlier was connectivity. And it's not just connectivity within the park, it's connectivity in the community and the parks themselves. Your park system, if you look at this map, Spencer's Landing, Spencer Park, Jackson Memorial, McDonough Wildlife Refuge. It's almost the center of the town all the way across. So what we're promoting, and it'll take a little bit of study to go through it, but we really have the ideas thought out for you, is starting at McDonough. You go under your underpass culvert, and you go through Jackson Park. A lot of those trails are already existing. Down to the area by the community center, taking the paved path that follows Pond Run to about 10th Street, or 30th Street, then go down 10th, and then following 28th Street. So one block over, 28th Street goes past Spencer Park. It goes to a stoplight on Grand Central Avenue, which is the most important part of that. And it goes all the way to River Road. And from River Road, you're 300 feet from Spencer's Landing. I think this needs to be the heart of that park corridor. That needs to be where anybody from the north and south of your neighborhoods comes down and hits that corridor to go back and forth between parks. So what we're promoting is some kind of shared use path. Many of those sidewalks start and just stop abruptly. And so you have areas where there are sidewalks and areas that aren't. They're also very narrow sidewalks when you have them. So we look at that as an opportunity to create this very nice corridor and do it in a safe manner. These are something that we look at in most communities. A lot of them in West Virginia really can't do. So this is a great opportunity here that's very flat and very accessible, at least to this point, before it goes up over the hill to Jackson's sports complex. So there's some different opportunities here. I think that's a future consideration. I would concentrate on the parks themselves and the amenities. And while you're doing that, work on how we're going to take care of this. It can be sidewalks, it can be multi-use paths, it can just be striping on the street. And that's the cheapest way to do it, is striping. But then you have to have some traffic control. So there's different opportunities for that. I really love how those link together. 12th Street. There's a reason we didn't put that into the previous chapter. Everything that was requested through our studies with the community, we met within all the other parks. So I felt like we really handled everything that was requested, the needs of the community. When I looked at the numbers in the region, we really didn't need to use 12th Street. But being there and looking at it, and I think I went there maybe 3 times. And I really started to look at that. Well, the one thing I really see is a soft launch boat ramp. And I know there's mussels in the river. There are in most places in West Virginia. But we want to look at that as a soft launch. What happens there then? We have a mile connection between Spencer Landing and 12th Street. We also have a 500-foot paddle over to Neal Island. Is that correct? Neal Island. And so now we're touching the wildlife refuge. So what we're thinking about is something very simple. A little bit of parking, a soft launch boat ramp, and now we have our own little water trail between Spencer's Landing and 12th Street, a mile long, and the wildlife refuge. So this actually has other opportunities. We kind of let it off, but if you could do a pump track, you could do a climbing wall, you can do multiple things. It could be a little bit of an adventure park, but I think we leave that open as flexible. You had a BMX track at one time. I don't know when that was, in the 80s. That's actually coming back. They're building a huge one in Morgantown. So maybe that's an opportunity. But I would think this is a flexible site that could be used for multiple things. So our recommendation is to really think about it as maybe a soft launch boat ramp for now. Leave the rest of it open for flexible future considerations. Okay, that was it. And so the last thing I'd say is the one more thing we have is priorities. You know, how do we set all these projects up as priorities for the city? That's something that we need to meet with you as a council and also with the board of directors. And we will create that, and that'll be the finalized portion of the booklet. We can't do that without you. I can come up with my priorities, but that really doesn't make sense. It needs to be the input from the city itself and the board of directors of the park.
Jim, before we open it up for questions.
Sure.
Tim, I'd like you to introduce the members of the park board that are here tonight. I'm sure that some folks don't know who they are.
Sure. We've got Jack Mathers with us this evening, Lou Molinaro, and Barbara Joyce. I don't think any of these. Myself.
I know I'm catching you off guard. I should have told you earlier, Tim. The plan that we've seen this evening, there's some things in there that I've frankly never even thought about. And I think some of those are great. I think we could get started on them tomorrow. But at any rate, Tim, I know that your group has been over there for a long time. I think that we as a council should rely on you all for your input and for your direction and vision as to which way we need to make some of these long-term improvements. So is there anything that you'd like to add to Jim's presentation?
No, I mean, I think at various points in time through the years, there's been talk about a master plan for the parks. I can speak to my 2.5 years of being on the board, and it's been a priority for us to get this done. And, I'm the first one to say it, and Mary, you just kind of mentioned it. There are things here that I definitely never thought of. And our idea behind this was bringing in people who do this for a living. And they don't only do it like here in West Virginia, but across the country. They know what the trends are. They took the input from the public and put this together. And to me, that's what needs to be done, and I'm pretty excited about what I've seen. And as a board, we want to take it and really dig into it and look at what we determine priorities. But a lot of it, in terms of when you look at prioritizing, comes out in the input that you receive.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of knowledge in this room that we can draw from. And there are some things that you've presented tonight that just, they won't work for various reasons. But there are some exciting things that are there that I think we need to have a blank slate and go from this and say, oh, let's pick out the things that we think we can do and maybe some things that we'd like to do. Jackie, we'll have to get with you to make sure that we can do the things in McDonough Park, or consider doing the things in McDonough Park. If there's any restrictions as far as, the trails and what have you, there's some things that we have to do some more research into. But that under River Road or under Rosemar Road culvert, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that's the worst. My God, how'd you get run over out there? And if you could do that, wow, would that be cool?
And Mayor, I'd like to add that as a master plan, think about this as a new way to look at it and things to achieve, but master plans are ever evolving. So when you look at this in 5 years, or you look at a different piece of property, you may have an opportunity, or you may have an opportunity that we have in here that shuts itself down. That's okay. I think you need to be flexible with it. It's something to follow in a guideline, but at some point it kind of veers back and forth. All master plans are like that. So keep that in mind as we move forward.
Okay, so what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to say, okay, for the next 10 minutes, if there's that much discussion, but at 7:15, we're going to conclude this part because we've got another lengthy one coming up. But anyway.
Yeah, I do have a question. So you said that this is going to be available. When is that plan that you have right
We
there?
can send you guys this link now.
That'd be great.
Tim can send it to the council.
Okay.
I'd rather not put it out in the public until we get those priorities and put that together and finalize it in the back of the booklet. But that's totally up to the council.
I'll get that out to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. I know it was lengthy. There's an awful lot more in this document. Once you get it, you can start reading through that first section to see how all that information came together for those final recommendations and the master plan of the parks.
All right. Jim, thank you so much for your time and effort. We
Thank
will
you.
be back.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right. At this time, I'm going to take a break. We will start back at 7:15. Please be prompt. We're going to go.